Mr. Arjun Lall, welcome to the SoapyRao show. Thank you so much for being here, my friend.
My pleasure. Absolutely. What an honor. Thank you.
Hey, no, that's too much. Honor was a bit much.
It,
No, man.
it, it, it is. I was looking at the people who you've had on this show, and yeah, I was very humbled and honored by the fact that you invited me on. So thank you.
No, it's my pleasure. You know why? Because it's sometimes you just don't have to. It's you don't have to look too hard sometimes. So you kind of are sometimes researching guests, and sometimes you're lucky enough. I was lucky enough to meet you after years, and I'm so glad that we could reconnect because yeah, there've been some really lovely people who reached out, and I've reached out who've responded back to be on the podcast. But it's so amazing that I met you at this point in your life, and we have hung out many years back when we were very different people individually as well. And as we've spoken, we met randomly where it wasn't even planned, where I borrowed your one length irons, which is not an innuendo. It's just I borrowed your one length clubs on the golf course. And then you told me a story, and I want to just, I've heard it, and I still won't mind hearing it again. So thanks for agreeing to do this and sharing, agreeing to share what you've sort of, I wouldn't say gone through, but what you've decided to do in your life and the path you've chosen for yourself. So appreciate it, man.
Thank you.
So um, for people, who haven't met you and haven't had the good fortune to call you a friend, you've been a lawyer for 20 plus years.
Almost 20 years. Yeah.
20 years. And what kind of law were you in? Were you doing the corporate stuff, or were you doing the appearing in court kind of law?
I was a corporate lawyer.
Okay.
I was at the firm Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas for my
Mm.
entire career.
Mm.
Absolute blessing to be with the people there, Mr. Shroff there.
Hmm.
I specialize in capital markets
Okay.
and I did mergers acquisitions.
Mm.
Yeah, I was head of South as well for a little while, but I spent my entire professional career at Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas.
So what was the motivation to, I mean, is there a leaning towards law in your family, or was there a certain moment in your life that said, I need to go into this system and
N-
work in law?
none actually. It's a great story actually, since you asked the question. I actually wanted to be a doctor. I was
Mm.
dead set. I come from a family of doctors. My grandfathers and their three times relatives removed, everyone is a doctor. And I really wanted to be a doctor. But
Interesting.
when class 10, we were evaluating options, and everyone was like, oh my God, you have to study bio. It's so hard. Then
Oh
you have to
God,
do
bye.
five years residency and then MBBS and this and that. And all the doctors basically said, no, you cannot be a doctor. But I had this
What
real
do you mean the
great
doctor said you
desire.
can't be a doctor? Like doctors in your family
I,
said, okay.
yes, they said don't go down that profession. It
Oh,
is like it'll be 10 years before you even see the inside of an OT. You'll be slaving away to all glory, blah blah blah. They said
Mm.
don't become a doctor, become anything else you want to, but don't be a doctor.
Right. Not even
Um,
dentist, just just
no,
nothing.
no, no, don't.
Just avoid the
But
D
I
word.
avoid the D word. So as in our time, and you can appreciate this, right?
Mm.
You either were an engineer or you were a doctor.
Mm.
If you were not either of them, then what else did you end up doing?
And
Um,
this is in the 90s, like the late 90s, right?
This is in 94.
Right. Okay. Now that's just to give
Yeah,
context for people now, because
yeah.
even later, if you fast forward to like 2001, when I was looking at undergraduate options, 99, 2000, it was still maybe two more options, right? You could possibly consider, you know, maybe it was engineer, doctor, maybe a lawyer, or a fourth thing was that it's lit, but still it was quite limited. We didn't have the idea of content creator, YouTuber. We didn't have the option of freelancer. Those things were very limited, right?
Absolutely. And at that point of time, I had a very dear friend who was studying for the IIT entrance exams.
Mm,
My parents were very keen that I give the engineering entrance exams.
mm,
And he's the one who told me, like, you know what? Hey, there is this place called law school. They do law, blah, 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 blah. Would you be interested? I said,
right.
yeah, sure, well. I applied for it.
Mm.
There's an entrance exam. I gave the entrance exam,
This is the
and
National Law School
this is
entrance
a
exam.
national law
Right,
school
right,
exam.
right.
At that point of time, there was the only one national law school, and now there are
Yeah.
many, and I'm happy to say that.
Yeah. It
Uh,
was the most sort of prestigious law school at that
it,
point
it,
in
it
time.
was the only one. It was the first time in the country that a 5-year legal program had been set up. So students from class 12 could go straight and do a BA, LLB combined over a 5-year
Oh, is
program.
that what it was? That was the first of its kind
Yes,
combined program. Okay.
yes, absolutely. And then it took off, and then we have like 12, 10, 12, a lot more law
Right.
schools now.
So
And
much more. Yeah.
exactly. And so my friend wrote the IIT entrance exam. I tried writing the IIT entrance exam. Let me just say that.
Right.
But I think in my mind, I was playing basketball while I was actually sitting in the exam room somewhere.
Yeah.
Uh, but I did study for the law school entrance exam. It was a whole bunch of general knowledge, logical reasoning, legal reasoning
Ah.
stuff. And I happened to get through. And
Just at that point, I'm going to, because I wrote the entrance exam as well to National Law School, and I'm not even going to mention my rank here because I think the top 60 or top 80 get in or something like that, right? And
yes, the top 80 at that point of time.
top 80, right? So I think it was around the same number when I was applying. And I just, as you mentioned, you have these things which are there in the SATs or have a similar kind of sections, right? Like GRE, where you have
Yep.
logical reasoning, analogies, you have I think you have legal reasoning. That's a new section, or what a section specific
Yep.
to the law entrance. And I just can't do standardized tests, man. I can't. Like I've done the SATs, and this is not to say the test is hard or it's extremely easy. This is a personal approach to standardized testing. I can't get my head around it. It's just those examples, those mock papers. I'm just like, no, this is not how I think. And see, clearly you have even at that point, without knowing it, you had a flair the for law, which obviously showed in the fact that you qualified in the top 80 for this massively attended common exam. But did you feel that it just came naturally to you, just to talk about that particular entrance
It never
exam?
did. It never did. Honestly, it never did. I think I was on the wait list. I got really lucky that a whole bunch of people dropped out before me, so I got through.
Okay.
And frankly, I think at that point of time, uh, what really held me well were two things. One was general knowledge. We had a
Right.
big section on general knowledge at that point of time. And the second section, I would say, was logical reasoning. I think those are the two sections which I think, at least, we don't know, but I think I scored well enough to pass the exam and barely make it through. Was I cut out to be a lawyer from day one? No, not at all. I struggled. The first
Ah.
2, 3 years in law school was I had come from the regimented schooling system of Delhi and DPS Arkepuram, right, where we have sections going from A to S, like A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way
Oh
to
wow.
S
Okay.
in class 12 with 50 kids each, and
Right.
each one of them is being groomed to be a superstar and IQ higher than the other. I
Hmm.
came from one of those regimented, straight-jacketed school systems,
Yeah.
and to jump into a framework or a paradigm of law school where it was about thinking, it was about understanding, it was about logic, it was about connecting dots. I struggled. I really,
Alien
really struggled.
concepts. Yeah.
Wow, alien concepts. I
You
really
feel kind of
struggled.
lost, right? Without that. I mean, it's kind of, this is what I felt on a very different level when I went to university abroad, and I talk about this as well. Is this not just the idea of living independently away from home? It's this, you're thrown into this space where you're not, and for, as you said, our entire schooling life was around this, going for tuitions. And you're preparing yourself within the structure which is so rigid, but that gives you comfort in that particular rigidity, right? And suddenly you're in this place where your um, ability uh, to kind of think through situations, problems, and faced with challenges in academic context is valued. And you're like, but I don't have anything which is, I don't have that muscle which has been built up, right?
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, I think law school or a educational system like the law schools and the arts colleges and NID and NFT and all of that today, they actually really take you out of your comfort zone. Like you said, like I still am, believe you me, I'm extremely stage conscious, stage shy, stage fright. I hate the camera on me, including right now. right?
It's okay.
But what you do in law school, right? You have to
Mm.
stand up and you have to present a case. You have to stand up and make a presentation. You have to justify and argue in a mock trial.
Terrifying.
So
Yeah.
it was terrifying, like
Yeah.
severely, severely terrifying. I used to stammer and stutter my way through my 1 hour, like through 1 hour presentations, which would eventually take 3 hours because I spent half the time stammering and stuttering through them.
Mm.
But it really opened up my eyes to who I could be and
Mm.
what more was possible. Did I ever think I would be a good lawyer? No, but I know that institution gave me two things. Number one, it gave me a mentality that, hey, if there's an opportunity that comes your way, it's up to you what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Take it with both hands and make the most of it, what you can do.
Mm.
So it made me open to a whole bunch of experiences. Some good, some bad, some academic, some non-academic, some
Yeah.
personal, like college life and all of that. I
Of
think
course.
that
Yeah.
just really opened me up completely. And secondly, it actually showed me the fact that it's not relevant to know everything all the time. You can't know everything all the time. I can't recite the Constitution of India,
Mm.
right? Or the Indian capital markets code. I can't. But I know where to find the right answer, and I know what the regulators are looking for or what the right position is. So it kind of shifted the focus away from that rote knowledge where you're supposed to mug up every single thing to effectively a paradigm shift of knowing where to find the right answer, who do you speak to, what's the right authority, and draw your own logical conclusions to that eventual answer. I think that those are the two
Yeah.
big learnings for me from law school.
No, it's amazingly important, right? To be more efficient in how you find the answers as opposed
Yeah,
to having the answers.
yeah,
No, and I think a third thing which I can add to what your experience is you didn't give up. You didn't just quit the program, right? Which I don't know if it's a sign of the sort of generation you come from, but it wasn't. Um, I mean, I don't think dropping out was. I mean, I don't think it was frowned upon. That was the reason, but I think we stuck it through. And I'm going to sort of bracket myself in the same generation. Is that we sort of see this as, and that I think that sort of ties into the second point you made, or the first point, which is it's an opportunity that's been presented to you. It might not seem like, and all this is in hindsight, of course, it might not seem like it's going to have any sort of longevity in your life, but you kind of stick through it. And as a result, other things do come up in the periphery, you know?
absolutely. See, I think our generation, and maybe I sound a little patronizing when I say this, but our generation was brought up very different than the current generations.
Mm,
If you scored 98 on 100 and you went back home full of joy and said, Mom, I got 98 on 100,
mm,
your mother would be like, well done. What happened to the other 2 marks?
mm, mm, mm.
Where did those go? But today it's a whole different shift. You go back home and, the kids are being applauded for
Going to school. Yeah,
going to school.
yeah, yeah,
Essentially, yes, exactly. So I think so. I don't. So quitting wasn't even in our vocabulary. I don't think I knew
yeah.
what the word meant.
I think
My
it's both in both
mom,
cases the parents that have created
yeah,
that environment, right? Yeah, yeah.
my mom made sure that as children, my sister and I were brought up on a healthy diet of sports and athletics as well.
Mm,
And we both of us we ran sub junior state level. We played tennis. We did swimming. So when you're participating in an activity with other people, whether it's swimming or sports, even at a young age, you don't realize it. But just that fact that you're doing this with other people imbibes in you in a certain strength, a
yeah,
strength of character, a strength of will, a strength of determination, not a sense of outcome. Yes, okay, it's great. You wanted to be fast and first and all of that, but it gave you so much more, which is which is completely agnostic to the outcome. And
yeah.
in hindsight, now I can look back and say, wow, really, if it wasn't for those hours in the sun that my mother drove my sister and me to, and stood inside a stadium while watching us run circles around a field for like endlessly forever, or swimming
Mm,
class, or tennis class, or basketball class, I don't think I would be this person today. I
yeah.
see a direct connect between the values that my mom and all the training instilled in me to the values I'm trying to carry today as a yoga teacher. So like
Yeah.
full connection.
You know, it's amazing that you mentioned that because I've been trying to think back in those situations because I can kind of draw parallels with what you just said. where, it was from everything from going from piano classes to going, horse riding in 6 in the morning, to going
Nice.
to for summer camp. Yeah, it was. I mean, but many times it was your mom telling you have to do this, right? It was the and maybe not because you have to represent India in dressage or anything, but you just go because it was affordable in that point, in the sense we could have access to it. We went to the club for tennis, or even say, for instance, golf. I started when I was 14. It was being out in
Nice.
the sun, right? I never won a
Nice.
single tournament. I never became a scratch handicapper. I never became a successful jockey or any of those things, but I did all of it. And so now when I look back in the middle, I stopped and I was like, no, I'm not going to do anything anymore for other people. So now I'm revisiting all those things, and just the idea of doing things without the outcome being the main focus gives you a sense of a whole round, sort of a well-rounded life. You know what I mean? It's you kind of get a pleasure from maybe doing an outdoor activity, a sense of pleasure from playing or practicing an instrument. You get a sense of pleasure from reading, and all these things were encouraged. I feel it wasn't a sole focus. Of course, we can't generalize for the generation, but I feel what you just mentioned is so true, because it's not one thing that you've developed over the course. It's not like the only thing you are is law, right? You have
No.
so many other things that influence each other.
Oh, absolutely. I think we are the sum product of all our experiences for however long we've lived. And um, I think people use Steve Jobs as a same example, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've all read his biography, right? He learned calligraphy, he learned coding, he learned languages. And suddenly, one fine day, all of that suddenly came together and Apple was born. I think to
Yeah.
each one of us, like really, if you have the time, take a breath, sit back, think, you are the sum of all your beautiful experiences and the sum of all your bad experiences, because we've all learned so much from all our bad experiences. And
Oh,
that's what makes
absolutely.
us, and that's what makes us who we are. That's what gives us the strength and the power to be who we want to be.
Absolutely.
But
That's
yeah,
very well put. Yeah.
it's a little different in today's times. I think there's too much internet, there's too much social media, there's too much.
I think there's too much of a bait. There's too much of a law for these people who are. I mean, when I say these people, all of us, and of course, when we see this, I'm sure even you and I, who are not from the generation that was completely brought up with smartphones and the internet, but even when you and I, say, for instance, we go to YouTube and there's a video which says, "Get the best golf swing in 5 steps," we will click on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Because it's
absolutely. It is
it's
there.
just
There is a
difficult not to be tempted by it.
oh, absolutely. And
Yeah,
I don't sit here in a position of holier than thou. I think we've
yeah,
all been folly to the irresponsible absurdity of spending till 4 a.m. in the morning browsing one YouTube video or one meme after the other,
yeah,
realizing that hell, I haven't slept all night. What the hell am I doing?
yeah,
We've all been there.
yeah.
But the larger issue is what I call, or what I read, or what I call, is the culture of overconsumption.
The
We
culture of
over
work, right?
The culture of overconsumption.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah,
Okay. Right. Right.
we eat more than we need to. We watch shit more than we really need to
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah.
We breathe more than we really need to. And everything is all imbalanced towards overconsumption. And I think
It's
that's
tremendously
something that's
sad for these kids.
it's not just the kids, it's all of us. I would say
I
us
mean,
too.
I would say us too, of course, but for these kids whose the parents, and there's no blame here. First of all, it's just a conversation. But the parents who went from, say, your mom, my mom, who said, where the 2 marks, where could you have improved, to no worrying, no worries, my darling, you are the best, and don't even if you come last, you're first from the back, and all these statements, right? It creates, I think, this sense of inability to, I wouldn't say resistance, but this inability to or rather lowered resilience. Because I think we've all lost, we've all cried, we've all felt embarrassed when we failed. But this ability to bounce back is harder when the messaging is constantly, you can be the next biggest influencer. And if it's not, then it's something to do with you, as opposed to, okay, there will be 30 things you try and you will fail at 29 or maybe all 30, but don't look for the big win. Enjoy the smaller things which you enjoy doing, as opposed to the outcome alone, right?
Absolutely. And like I said, I don't think it's fair to, like you said, actually, it's not fair to single out anyone. I think it's just the culture we are in. And I
Yeah.
think our parents' generation, I think, is probably the breaking point. But our generation, which is the millennials and everyone below Generation Z, P, whatever the alphabets are, I think we're all where internet changed the paradigms like
Yeah.
drastically.
Yeah.
Internet gave power to advertising in a way that it was never before. There earlier a choice was on a television ad on Doordarshan or on a billboard,
Yeah.
right? Or you're walking down Brigade Road, you happen to see like a window
Yeah.
shop.
On the
But
TV was
internet,
static, right? The TV was not mobile. It was in one place,
exac-
which you would turn
exactly,
on. Yeah. And you'd share it with
absolutely.
the whole family.
And there was no AI and algorithm saying,
Yeah.
hey, you watch this video, do you want to watch this next? And
Yeah.
all the sponsored stuff and all. So I think internet changed the entire paradigm, and I think
Yeah.
we've all been prey to it.
Yeah.
This culture of overconsumption, including me.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I mean,
No, I'm absolutely agreeing with you. I'm on the
like
same
full
page.
on, like
I'm a slave to my phone for sure.
not only phone. I think it's just
What I mean by phone is, I mean the things that the phone gives me access to.
it's not only that.
WhatsApp.
It's not only that, right? I mean, I can be honest with you on this. I
Yeah.
was a good lawyer. I worked in a great law firm.
Yeah.
I had a great quality of life.
Mm.
Uh, but then I also surrounded myself with objects, whether it's those fancy suits or fancy shoes or a fancy car, or going out for fancy dinners or all of that stuff.
Mm.
It's the classical case of overconsumption. I have the
Yeah.
disposable income,
Yeah.
but and there is this power of choice that I have, and my monetary strength gives me more access, and therefore I can exercise it.
And
Long
that's a
term, is it
great.
sustainable? Yeah, sorry, I just finished the thought. Long
Yeah,
term, is it
absolutely.
long term, is it sustainable? Uh, at least for me, it wasn't. Let me just say that. If for me, it
Mm.
wasn't.
No, I mean it's great to hear it from you, right? Because we hear now, and you did mention this that when we had this choice of career back in the late 90s and early 2000s, it was a few career options, right? Law, medicine, engineering, maybe the civil service or whatever, right? Um, but you did go down the path of law, and you mentioned just now that you were really good at what you do, and um, you kind of are then given these things, these privileges, these perks, then especially the monetary, material benefits. But nowadays we hear people saying, pursuing your passion, let go of the conventional job. And I want to hear it from you, and it's amazing hearing it from someone who's been successful, because I never really had a good job, a well high paying job. I just kind of one day said, you know what, I'd rather do stand up and not waste time in a job which I'm not doing well anyway. And it wasn't like a really lucrative job where I had that much disposable income. So stand up was, I'd rather do that. And it kind of 11 years later, I'm looking back going, maybe it was a really good way to sort of hold a mirror to myself. But when you just mentioned this thing, um, what is the sense of? I don't have a question, but it's just kind of this. What are the emotions that made you realize? And you just mentioned this briefly, but so you're in this thing, you have a really good job, you're doing your job well. People are sort of holding you in high regard because you're this really successful lawyer. You are also flattering your lifestyle with um, high income choices which you're doing with the way you way you appear, the way you enjoy, the way you spend that money. So what
Right.
is this thought process, and what is this thing that interrupted that thought process? Going, wait a second, what is going on? Because I hear this in a lot of people, right? You're a person uh, who changed, but there are a lot of people who just mindlessly say, okay, now it's a Ferrari, tomorrow I want the new Aventador, or the Aventador, I want the Rolls Royce. It's a never ending, it just keeps getting worse. But what was that thing which was a wake up call for you? It's a very long winded point. I could just said, what was the wake up call for you? But I didn't
Oh,
want
and it's a question that I could keep rambling on in an answer to for the next 1 hour. So Sandeep,
to.
cut me short if you need to.
Yeah, no, I'm
Uh,
really keen on knowing this because I
I
think it's
think
very important to
I
understand what the wake up calls were.
I think I think for the okay, let me put it this way. I think the first was this gnawing sense inside
Mm,
that of what is my true purpose?
mm,
Why am I here on this earth? Uh, we've all been blessed with four hands, two limbs. Some don't have hands, some don't have limbs, some have
mm,
sight, don't have sight, but we're still here on this earth,
mm,
right? What is our purpose as to why we are here on this earth? There has to be a purpose to it. Our purpose cannot be going to work every single day.
mm,
Our purpose cannot be acquiring more and more wealth around us. What is our true purpose in life?
mm,
I think for me, there was this gnawing sensation that am I really fulfilling or do I even really know my true purpose?
Mm,
I think it started from there. I let that thought be for a long while because I didn't have an answer to that. I didn't have a
mm,
plan. I wasn't qualified for anything else. I didn't think I was good enough for anything else.
mm,
I was very comfortable in these labels and tags of successful lawyer, capital markets, well
mm.
dressed, right? Those are all labels and tags that either people had given me or I had given myself, and I was very comfortable in that.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's a good facade
life,
to hide behind, right?
it's absolutely great. And don't
Mm,
get me wrong, right? To anyone out there, if you love your job and you're passionate about it, like and you do it with complete love, devotion, humility, and grace,
mm.
continue doing it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
I
enjoy the money, enjoy the
enjoy it
yeah,
completely enjoy
absolutely.
it, right? But there comes a point, and everyone, I believe, everyone in this life, in this human form, in this particular life that we lead today, not our reincarnated life or previous or past life,
Mm.
we all have a purpose,
Yeah,
right? Your purpose could be very well being a stand-up comedian, bringing happiness and laughter to people's faces. It
mm.
could be very well introducing people to other thoughts and opinions through your podcast. And if that's your purpose, then live life to fulfill that purpose.
Mm. Mm.
Don't worry about consequences or whether I'll be successful, unsuccessful, all of that. The minute we
Yeah,
get down to those, we're still coming back to selfish acts.
yeah,
Uh, so for me, it was just this gnawing, burning sensation inside. What is my purpose? What is my purpose?
yeah.
I didn't have an answer. I was still in the rat race, so I let it be. Then a series of unfortunate events happened in life. I got divorced, which
Mm.
was at that point of time hurtful. And
No,
I'll leave it
I
as
want to
that.
ask you just on that point. So, was that lifestyle affecting your marriage, or did this change in the
No,
lifestyle
no,
affect your marriage?
no. It's got
Okay,
nothing. They're two completely
okay, okay, cool.
independent thoughts.
Okay, just wanted to
Uh,
understand. Sorry for
no,
interrupting.
nothing. Yeah. No worries. And I again, so it's really at the moments of lows that
Mm.
you really, for some reason, we look back and look at ourselves in a new light.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone always says, you know what? Hey, I'm so depressed. I am so unhappy. Have you really ever heard anyone walk up to you and say, Hey, Sandeep, I'm happy. Hey, Sandeep, I'm on top of the moon?
Mm.
No, right? Everyone
Mm.
always says, Hey, I'm depressed.
Yeah,
So it is again at these moments that you're not feeling great with yourself that I actually enrolled myself in what is called the happiness program. It used to be called the happiness program. Now I think it's called the breath and meditation program by Sri Sri Ravi Shankar at Art of
okay,
Living.
okay. So at this point, you
Uh,
had given up your job at
no, I'm
law firm.
still in my job. I'm
Oh,
very
you're
much
still
in
in the
my
law
job.
firm.
This is
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
okay,
This is still 2012. Still like
right,
9 years ago. I'm still very much in my job, doing what I'm supposed to do.
right.
And I think that workshop was the beginning of a spark in me.
Mm.
Sometimes, like they say, right? You need another matchstick to light another matchstick, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
if I were to equate my deep desire of finding a purpose, and my purpose essentially is to help other people,
yeah,
and I had to go back and to call back to the fact that I wanted to be a doctor. I really think I wanted to be a doctor even when I was young because I wanted to help other people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the only sometimes you need another mastic light, another mastic, and that entire happiness, breath, and meditation program actually truly opened my eyes to a whole different possibility of me. And I think that was the starting point. My parents are yoga teachers, and everyone's parents say, go do this," and as children we say, "No, I don't want to do this." And
Yeah.
my mother and father are both yoga teachers and art of living teachers, and they've been saying,
Mm.
go do yoga the last 30 years of my life, and I said no.
Yeah.
But I happened to turn to it by myself in a moment when I was at a pretty low time in my life.
Mm.
And it opened up the potential of my own potential to me.
Yeah.
And that process and that thought process started with slowly and steadily fixing things.
Mm.
We accumulate so much baggage in our lives that
Yeah.
it sometimes it's easy for some people to drop everything. Sometimes it
Mm.
takes time for some people. And especially if you're working within a system, then it's harder to keep dropping and
Yeah. Yeah.
letting go
Yeah.
and just surrendering to the process. So I think it took me my good 7, 8 years to finally figure out what is it I truly wanted to do,
Mm.
what I believe my purpose was and is to help people to finally let go of emotions, attachments,
Hmm.
anger, fear, resentment,
Yeah, yeah,
all the stuff that we just build up inside and just hold so tightly. It
yeah.
just took its own while to slowly let go. And then finally, a couple of years ago, I decided to move on from the
Hmm.
from the legal fraternity. I
Hmm.
spoke to my bosses who were supportive is an understatement of what they were.
Hmm.
Um, I've had a lovely equation with them over the last 20 years. They're
Hmm.
fully supportive. They've seen me grow spiritually, economically, as a
Hmm.
man over the last 20 years. And they were extremely supportive and they gave me the freedom to pursue what I wanted to do.
That is
And
remarkable. Yeah.
yeah, and I slowly went in deeper and deeper into yoga and what truly yoga is and what it
Hmm.
means. And yeah, here I am.
I think what's remarkable is the sense of um, so many layers you have to let go, or rather have to come off, right? Because you might you know grow up in a city, but just by virtue of that there is these layers of attachment which come from what how family perceive you, how friends perceive you, your classmates as classmates, your batchmates, your college mates, your colleagues. Then you add the next layer of, okay, the employers, employees, and then you have all these various things. As you said, they keep building up into the structure which you call your life. But a lot of times, because of one way of you being conditioned, saying, okay, put value to outcome and money, everything as a result is influenced by that particular thought process, right? You want to be seen with the right kind of friends, you want to have the right kind of conversations in the right kind of places, the cliques you form, the groups you form, the kind of energy that you put out is, I want to be accepted by this group. As a result, you change, and you kind of even if you are this person, you say, no, no, but this particular person doesn't work in this environment because I have to fit in, as opposed to develop and enjoy. I mean, instead of looking inward and saying, what can I be because with everything I have and don't have, you become this mold of what people expect you to do because of this one decision you took, or rather one incentive, which was wealth and money and outcome, right? So there's so many things to undo, which is amazingly difficult, right? Because it's constant, um, this idea that everything I know and I knew is going to be changed, is going under my feet. I mean, of course, not in a very instantaneous sort of situation. It's not happening overnight, but still, letting go of that is such a terrifying act, right? You're like, oh my god, okay, no, if I just, like, say for instance, if I say I'm done with stand up, it's not that I don't mean I love performing on stage, but it's this 11-year thing, which was the people I met, the kind of the conversations I have, the kind of identity which people associate with me, everything's going. So it's quite impressive, not impressive, but it's quite remarkable that you were able to do that. And what is the sense you feel now with attachment? Like, is it because now you're into this space of spirituality and using yoga to help people, and how does it feel? I think that's pretty much the question. Like, how does it feel being in this space right now?
I think liberating
Hmm.
is, I think, the simplest answer.
Hmm.
There is a little phrase or sutra in the Yogsara Upanishad which actually says Mumukshurve Sharna Aham Prabhadyate, which basically says that I am surrendering because I want freedom. I
Hmm.
am the anxious one and I want liberation. But the only way to achieve that is by letting go and by surrendering. Not surrendering in the sense of quitting or giving
Hmm.
up,
Hmm.
but letting go, like you just said, of all of these baggages, all of these
Hmm.
preconceptions of notions of who you are, how other people perceive you, your preconceptions of relationships.
Hmm.
Uh, you may have socialized notions of what's right and wrong through this
Hmm.
past, through your past life, through the current life, your experiences. The idea simply of just letting go of all of that is extremely liberating. Um,
Yeah.
and it's a journey. It doesn't happen in a flash, right? I cannot sit here and say like, "Hey, Sandeep, I've dropped everything. I'm floating 3 feet off the air while talking to you." No, it's a journey, and every day of yoga or a yoga practice is cherishing that journey,
Hmm.
digging a little deeper, peeling a little more of that layer of yourself again and again. Which is why when you said, "Hey, do you want to be on this podcast?" And I was like, really? Should I? But then I realized, you know what? If nothing else, I I have started a journey, and it's great for me to be able to share the beginnings of this journey with whoever your audience is. Few years later, when I'm few years down this journey, we can have another conversation. But the idea is to
Yeah,
share
we
that
won't connect on
journey
a
and
podcast. We'll connect telepathically, like just
also,
yeah.
but it's the idea is just to share the journey with as many people as possible, and hopefully people can see for themselves that there is only one reason, and one reason why we are so stressed out is because we don't really know ourselves. That's it,
Mm,
nothing else. Because you always want to be something. I did too.
okay.
I wanted to be the smartest guy in the room. I wanted to be the sharpest guy in the room. I wanted to be A, B, C, D. But if you just again let go of that want at itself, you'll really be able to see who you truly are for yourself.
Just while
And
you say
yeah,
that point, I want to throw in one thing. You commonly hear this, right? Oh, it's great to do yoga and great to do spirituality, but in reality, you need money. What will you do without money? So someone might think that, right? Oh, I'd love to do what Arjun is just saying right now and start this journey, but I need that job that pays me money, right? Because I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I've heard this thing being thrown. Oh, it's great to talk about doing comedy, but what you do it because you have a home, a family that supports you. I'm like, okay, cool. But you mentioned this to me when we met last time. That's why I'm bringing it up now. That um, these are questions that determine your choices, right? Sadly or fortunately, whatever it may be, whatever the motivation for you may be, when you're doing these kind of evaluations in your life, some people, I'm speaking on behalf of them, might say, okay, it's great. I'd love to experience this journey of inner um, understanding, appreciation. But what will I do? Because in the reality of the world, we need to survive with the currency being money. So, what would your, I mean, how would you answer someone who has these kind of questions?
I would say you do what you have to do to earn the money,
Mm,
but don't make money your purpose. Don't make money the
mm, mm.
reason for your existence.
Right.
You go to work because you love the people you work with. You go to
Hmm.
work because there is a beautiful intersection of what you love to do, what the world really wants. Someone is willing to pay you for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the theory of ikigai, right?
Mm,
The great Japanese philosophy as well. So
mm.
if you go, go work, go make money, but don't make it the sole purpose of what you do, what you do. I did
Right.
that
Right.
partly. And
Right.
that's what I'm saying is a big distinction. There are n number of dear friends who are still at the law firm where I used to work with, and they found a better balance than I did. Right?
Yeah.
Good for them. I'm supportive of them. They're supportive of me. But for me, I had to really pull myself out from way down in deep. And I'm the kind of person I am as well also plays into this, right? I'm an
Yeah.
all or nothing kind of person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And therefore I had to pull myself completely out of that quicksand and like move to a completely different shore as far away from that quicksand as
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
But I would say to those people, going back to your point, go ahead, do your job, do it with love, devotion, do it for the right reasons and the right purpose.
Mm,
Money will happen as a byproduct.
yeah.
The only and one thing I would add to that is remember to spend time with yourself. Don't let your work become your life, even if it was whatever your larger purpose is. Find some time every single day for yourself, whether it's that 10 minutes in the morning when you wake up and you just sit in your balcony or sit in your bedroom all by yourself, uninterrupted with just whatever thoughts you have, spend a few moments on your breath. Just find that 10 minutes for yourself. Then go ahead and live your day as you would, like I said, with love, devotion, and humility. You'll be fine.
I I think there's so much truth to that. I can vouch for just something as simple as maybe even starting out with an app or starting out with a 5 minute guided meditation on a whatever, right? A playlist. I think just the practice of every day, just trying to not even focusing on any particular thing. Starting out, I mean, even in 30 years later, you might not be able to meditate, but the idea of meditation, which I've learned, is spending time with yourself and it evolves every day. It doesn't have to be the same kind of meditation, but it's this sense that you are for once not being distracted by the noise or trying to not focus on the noise externally, but trying to look within, which is such an amazing thing, because then you realize that, wait a second, I've spent 38 years in my case that I'm looking out, trying to impress the world, trying to be a part of it, fit in, when I have such a big world inside I don't even know anything about, you know.
Exactly.
It's
It's
amazing.
and it's a very small start.
Yeah.
That candle that you light by that 10 minutes or 5 minutes of a day, the
Yeah.
glow of it will eventually pervade the entire room,
Yeah.
right? It's a fact. It goes without saying. So you just have to just light that candle,
Mm.
spend that moment with yourself in the morning, however it is, guided, unguided. I'm agnostic to any of those. Just start,
Yeah.
spend time, breathe, spend time
Right.
breathing, and everything will work out for you.
So there's this entire thing of overconsumption you mentioned, and since we're talking about now specifically with, um, because you've now gone into the space of yoga practice and helping people, especially with breath work, which you mentioned. What do you mean? Because you recommended that book to me, and I spoke about it in the a couple of episodes back on the podcast. The book Breath by James Nestor, right? Really good book, by the way. Thanks for suggesting
Pleasure.
that. Um, and he mentions the same thing: over breathing.
Yeah.
Um, and we have this, more and more we hear this conversation around stress and the human body, and we are hearing more and more of unfortunate instances where people who are who are young in today's numbers, right, in their 30s and 40s,
Unfortunate. Yes.
yeah, having
Yes.
some massive physical, um, incidents which are, in many cases lethal. So as a practitioner, as a person who's spent time looking at breath work, looking at the Vedas, looking at literature in this space, can you explain, first of all, what may be happening with the body, the breath, and the mind?
Ooh.
I mean,
Mm.
explain, or maybe just some context from what your perspective is. I'm not trying to put you on the line here.
No, no, no. There's a lot in that question, and there are great depths to that question. Um, okay, let's at least try and capture the tip of the iceberg
Hmm.
for today. What is the first thing we do when we're born? We inhale.
Hmm.
What is the last thing we do when we die? We exhale. That
Right.
breath of air that leaves the body when we die. It is one of the most autonomous acts in the body. It
Hmm.
happens by itself.
Right.
Like we blink, like our heart beats, like our endocrine system pumps out stuff, our digestive system works.
Yeah.
That's part one.
Hmm.
What happens when you're happy to your breath?
Hmm.
You go, you inhale with joy.
Right.
What happens when you're angry to your breath? It becomes short and raspy, right?
Hmm.
The breath is the first and the last thing you do. The breath is directly connected to your emotions as well.
Hmm.
But we believe the breath to be autonomous.
Hmm.
What's happened as a result of time, overconsumption, and as the book by James Nestor, Breath, also says, our facial structures have also changed, which is
Which
all
is
causing.
crazy. When I read that, I was
It's
so,
absolutely crazy, right?
I mean,
And
from
and
snouts to, we mocked
yeah,
our ancestors, the apes, saying, haha, we're from
yeah,
monkeys, what nonsense. And then this whole creationism versus evolution. But then
yeah,
clearly they had a better way of breathing. Their breath was much more conducive. And we are the ones
exactly,
going, is that a perfect nose, a sculpted aquiline nose, which
exactly.
is apparently really fucked up for us.
Bizarre. So what's really happened is the fact that we work all day hunched over our desks, we
Hmm.
don't eat right. Our breathing pattern over the years anatomically has changed and physiologically has also changed.
Hmm.
The human body breathes about 23,000 times a day,
Hmm.
which is around about 12, 15, 16 breaths a minute for most people.
Hmm.
And it's surprising that actually we can function by breathing 5 times a minute. That's
Right.
all you really need. What
Right.
happens as a result of overbreathing is the fact that we're over oxygenated. The balance between oxygen and carbon dioxide is out of imbalance in the body. Overbreathing is a big reason for hypertension,
Hmm.
for depression as well, for anxiety, for heart issues.
Which
There
is
is
so
no
weird.
time, which
Yeah.
is that you're not giving enough time for your body to release all the stuff that's built up. What does the exhale do? The exhale is not just the release of carbon dioxide. The exhale is a release, like you crap in the morning,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
exhale is a release of all the toxins as well from your body. But we constantly breathing shallow, in, out, in, out. The balance is all messed up. We're not
Mm.
able to expel out all the carbon dioxide, all the toxins, all the waste, all the stress as well. Uh, Cortisol in all our bodies is really high because we all live in stress. Like I was a lawyer for 20 years, right? I was running on one treadmill, jumping onto another treadmill.
Mm.
High stress. When do you ever get a time to detox from that stress?
Mm.
So that's the today's world answer to your question of what is breath. If you look at it going back into the ancient texts,
Mm.
if you go back to, and I'll go back right to the very start, to Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. It
Mm.
was a book written in, I think, 3,000 years ago. No
Yeah.
one even really knows whether there was a Patanjali or is a Patanjali, but it's the
Mm.
seminal text for yoga.
Yeah.
It's got, and that man was a genius, I must say. I don't know how 3,000 years ago anybody has such a keen insight of the human mind, all its
Mm.
afflictions. And he very clearly is written out there that the only way to fix all of this is to find a comfortable seated position
Mm.
and breathe
Mm.
and breathe. You have the mind is plagued by a number of afflictions,
Yeah.
as they say, chitta vritti tannirodha. So, but you can control all of this if you just breathe. You can regulate your inhale, regulate your exhale.
Mm.
You can hold your inhales, hold your exhales, and from that is the birth and the genesis of pranayama.
Mm.
What is the various pranayam that everyone, all the yoga practitioners in the world teach and practice? The genesis is that very simple sutras in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra that go, you can control all these aspects of your mind just
Mm.
by controlling your breath. How, if we're angry, our breath changes, but why not the reverse? Why can't we control our anger with our breath? Why can't we
Right.
control our minds with our breath?
Yeah.
So, at a physical level, breathing is extremely important.
Yeah.
Uh, it slows down your heart rate.
Mm.
They say, at least medical science says that every heart is born with a defined life. How many times it will beat for you? Wouldn't it be amazing if you could prolong that by slowing down your heartbeat?
Yeah.
The only way to slow down your heartbeat is by if you breathe slower, you breathe deeper, have less stress, let go of the stress in your breath. Your heart rate will also slow down.
You know, in this book, they mentioned this idea of how CO2 levels, higher CO2 levels in the body being good. I don't know if I misread that, misheard that, but there's some things they're doing, right? Using carbon dioxide therapy to help people with anxiety, depression, where they give you a hit of CO2. Do you know, do you have more insight on that? Because I couldn't really understand all of it.
Not to get too much into the science of it
Yeah,
again, right? But the point being really simple. Carbon dioxide is not only just a byproduct, it's an essential element of who our body composition is as well.
right.
By getting into this consumption of being overbreathers, the balance of O2 to CO2 with nitrogen and the other smaller gases
Mm.
is out of balance.
Right,
Very simply.
right.
That's truly the absolute essence of it. If you spend more time with CO2 in your body, again, this has a direct linkage back to pranayama as well. You spend more time with CO2 in your body, which effectively means you exhale out all your air and you hold your breath and don't breathe in. Your body actually learns to process the oxygen that is there in your blood cells a lot more efficiently. Your organs become stronger, your heart becomes deeper. What is
So when you
happening right
expel
now?
all the air in your lungs and you keep that, and you don't inhale anymore for a few seconds, your body takes what you have. It's kind of like already the body burning fat reserves, equivalent of that kind of thing.
Your body tapping into the deepest reserves of wherever you have oxygen to fuel itself, and therefore you become a lot. Basically, your body becomes more efficient.
Ah, okay.
There's this other guy. There's this. I think he's Dutch, another breathing expert, but a crazy adventurer by the name of Wim Hof.
Yes, they
W
mentioned the
I
guy in the
M.
book. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so Wim Hof method is also aimed at similar. He's climbed to 8,000 meters on Everest wearing nothing but a piece of, with nothing but a pair of shorts. He's climbed Kilimanjaro in a pair of shorts. He swum under the Arctic ice floats. He swam underneath it for like hundreds of meters.
Mm.
Again, it's about power of the breath, how the power of the breath can regulate your organs, how the power of the breath can generate internal heat
Mm.
by itself as well to make sure that everything functions. So it's the science being the fact that the breath is not completely autonomous. There is a certain amount of say that you
Mm.
can have. It doesn't have to be by itself. I think that's the broad paradigm of the book. If I could bring it down to a nutshell, I would go back to the simple point of just spend time breathing and send your consciousness and awareness to your breath every single day.
Yeah, and you teach that. I mean, it's amazing you that you are able to help people because we hear of help coming in so many different ways, and many times it's more intellectual, it's more rational, right? Whether it's therapy or whether it's physical activities, you kind of see people giving um, lessons in life, but something on such a fundamental and I can even call it intimate, right? Because each person's breath is so their
Yes,
own,
it
even though we
is.
all share it. We
Yes,
all are different breathers, and trying
absolutely.
to, it's, I mean, just thinking of that, going, okay, I'm going to teach you how to breathe, and I'm like, what? It's quite um it must be quite a thing because let me ask you this, because with the internet again being this companion of ours in the 21st century, and access to so many YouTube videos, so many breathing practices which are on these platforms, where you have literally tens of thousands of ways, like where you some people, like, you do the box breathing, then you mention this person from that his style of breathing, then you have the various foundations teaching you breathe. And is there a way where you should be a little cautious and learn this step by step, because you have gone in slow, at the same time guided through a teacher, but is there a risk of getting into this too deep and getting in over your head with only watching online courses or online breathing programs, and could it have a negative effect on you?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I'm so glad you asked that question. Absolutely true. Um, each one of these breathing patterns is not meant for everyone. If you have a heart condition,
Yeah.
and if I ask you to, make your breath more excitable, it's not going to be good for you. If
Mm.
you're pregnant and I ask you to do a pranayam that holds your breath, it's
Yeah.
not going to be good for you or your baby,
Right.
right? So yes, absolutely. So the specific pranayams and the specific counts and the holdings, yes, you definitely need a teacher, someone who's walked that path before.
Mm.
But just breathing what we do, it doesn't need a teacher. It doesn't
Yeah.
come at a price. It needs nothing but just your attention, awareness, and stillness. And for that, there are no side effects. Absolutely none.
So that's
With
basically a few breaths in. I mean, breathe in with a few seconds through your nose, breathe out for a
and
few seconds through your nose.
seconds through your nose.
Right.
And the more you do it, the more you will experience what your body is capable of, not just physically, but even mentally. Uh, Breathing has a profound impact on how it affects your parasympathetic system as well, how it relaxes you, how it invigorates, how an inhale can actually invigorate your endocrine system, your thyroid, your pituitary gland, and all get all the good. What are we all chasing in this world? We spoke earlier, going back to a conversation we had about 10 minutes ago. What are we all chasing?
Yeah.
We're all chasing the same thing, happiness. Whether you call that happiness is a form of a high, whether it's you may take drugs for it, or happiness high when you do retail therapy, or high
Yeah.
when you successfully close a deal, or a high when you've had a great podcast, or you walked out of a great show. We're all chasing a high in life, right? And nothing else. That sense of happiness.
Yeah.
But truly and actually, if you really think about it, that sense of happiness and high is nothing but a release of certain chemicals in your body.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
What if I told you, I not if me, what if there is a mountain of scientific literature out there that just we haven't been exposed to that tells you that, hey, all you really have to do is just sit and breathe with a certain awareness,
Mm.
and all those little chemicals, all those stuff that releases in your brain that makes you feel happy and high, you will find it just in breathing. Won't that be wonderful?
Yeah. I think many times we just the reason why we're in this mess, in my experience is because of we're distracting ourselves from what is potentially available to us. We ask ourselves the wrong questions. We're seeking all the answers in the wrong places. I mean, because you get this sense, right? With when you say breathing, it's so accessible. It's there. You don't need to learn how to. In the sense, you don't have to take up a course in breathing. You can actually do it just by inhaling through your nose. It's very basic learning, right?
Yeah,
But we complicate it, and
absolutely.
I think many times we're so scared. I think, and I was just thinking about this morning. The one thing which is guaranteed, and as you mentioned, is one thing we are born in is breathing, and we're going to breathe out, and we're not going to breathe in after. That's called death, and we are, of course, all going to die. But instead of I think I this is of course a personal view is instead of saying okay I am going to die so I rather live well and use this breath which is which is synonymous with life. Let me do that well, as opposed to that we put all these barriers around us going no I'm not going to die, I'm not going to die. It's kind of this distraction from death which I think has become this problem where we're trying to run away from the inevitable or the inevitable. I forget which word that is. Inevitable, yeah.
No, I so agree with you. And just to like layer on to that, I I truly believe that being human is a profound opportunity we all have.
Mm,
With all our faults, with all our disabilities, just being human is a profound opportunity for each one of our consciousness to discover whatever its potential is.
yeah.
And it starts with just slowing things down. And the only way to slow things down is again, just take those 5 minutes and by yourself in the morning,
Hmm.
have a breath.
Have a breath. Yeah. It's, I want to ask you something from a breath point of view, right? Like I sometimes, I'm lying down reading a book or whatever, and it's not the ideal posture for breathing. But, I say, okay, let me be aware of my breath. So I do, resort to abdomen breathing, where you kind of feel the diaphragm expanding and then you take it through your nose, you do 3 counts in, 6 counts out. And after like, say, 12 counts, um, you're expecting results, so you're expecting a change, and then you feel uneasy. You're like, oh my god, what is happening? And say you kind of start feeling borderline anxious. So what is someone, I mean, of course there's no answer to this when I mean what is someone supposed to feel, but what how does someone um, wait because these things are not immediate. Like it's not like taking a hit of cocaine, I suppose. I mean, maybe it's even more powerful. But if you're doing it, if you just want to start small, if you're taking just these basic steps into breathing with your nostrils, through your nostrils initially, how does someone keep themselves encouraged without resorting to these drastic steps of just saying, okay, I'm going to join a 3-day crash course in Kapalabhati breathing or something like that. So what are like little markers that you can encourage yourself with?
I think the first thing is it's only 5 minutes a day,
Right. Okay.
right? You spend more time than that probably in the bathroom in the mornings.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So you brush your teeth every day.
Yeah.
No one tells you why are you brushing your teeth.
Mm.
I mean, our parents inculcated that habit in us. We realize the value of it now. No one needs to tell us, otherwise our enamel will go and our teeth will be rotten and we'll have bad breath and we'll have blah blah blah.
Mm.
But no one questions that, right?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that they have to eat healthy.
Yeah.
We choose to, we choose not to. That's a
Yeah.
different matter,
Yeah.
right? So if a simple act of, oh, let me put it even more bluntly, we clean our posterior after we take a dump, right?
Yeah.
We do it. No one tells us, oh, you have to do it. It was
Yeah.
told to us when we were 1.5 years old. Since then, it's inbuilt into our system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all where you and I are talking about is just that simple act of 5 minutes.
Mm.
There is no marker for it. I think you need to do something repeatedly again and again with a certain humility and with a certain detachment of consequences for it to truly percolate into your consciousness.
Okay.
I think everyone should. The challenge arises again because we are wanting something out of it.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to feel bliss. I want to feel what Sandeep and Arjun were talking about. I
Mm.
want to feel this high. But the minute you want to feel that high, you'll never feel it. I promise you that. It'll never happen.
Mm.
This is not,
So
I mean, we're not talking about cocaine, right?
yeah.
It'll never happen. The
So don't
minute you
focus
let
on the outcome
go,
even in this.
not even this, the minute you let go of the outcome, you let go of the process of the outcome, and you just spend that few minutes yourself, you will experience the power of it. Like I said, if you like every brain is different. If you're an analytical mind, contact Sandeep, contact me if you're listening. We can send you a mountain of scientific data
Mm.
on papers by learned authors, great scientists on exactly what we're talking about. And him and I are not even touching the tip of the iceberg in our
Yeah.
conversation, right?
No,
So
absolutely. There's a lot.
if
I don't know
it's about
how much is out there. Yeah.
exactly. If you're an analytical person, we have the scientific data for you. If you're a more spiritual person, we can direct you to the relevant passages and interpretations and of the Gitas, the Vedas, the Upanishads, which all talk about the breath and the power of yoga and the power of that union of the body, mind, and soul.
Mm.
So it depends. Different strokes for different folks. Whatever path leads you to it is absolutely fine. But the starting point is all the same for everyone. The ending point is the same for everyone. It's the journey we take that is different for everyone.
I think that's beautifully said. No, and you do this in your yoga practice. You're not putting emphasis on hot yoga, cold yoga, whatever the thousands of styles of yoga are there,
So,
which now people think is only asana practice, vigorous asana practice. As you hear sometimes, how many Surya Namaskaras can you do? How much can you stand on your? How long can you stand on your head for? But you mentioned to me that you solely focus, if not, um, a little bit of asana, but you mainly focus on breath work, right?
yes, and just a little segue. And a question from me to you.
Hmm.
Is yoga a verb or a noun?
Oh, first of all, I think I don't know what a difference between a verb and a noun. Man, you made this, or you just turned this on my head. I'm like, shit. I feel I never
Sorry.
speak English. No, no. I I think shit. Okay, what is okay?
I think the fact that you just struggled, I
Mm,
think automatically your brain suddenly realized that hey, I've always thought of the fact that hey, I go do yoga, I'm going to yoga class, I practice yoga.
yeah.
But yoga is actually a noun. Your word yoga means union, right? A union of you with yourself, a union of okay, forget the
You took me back to
Purusha.
first standard where I was like, I need to answer this to get a gold star, and I didn't get the gold star.
No, you did. Your pause and your hesitancy was itself to me illuminating of the fact that yes, most people have a preconceived notion of yoga as being a verb or something
Mm,
you do, but yoga is a state of being,
mm,
right? So yes, I agree. In today's common parlance, we use yoga as a verb, so let's go with that. But I think it's important to keep that fundamental subtext in the back of our mind
mm,
that what we're trying to do or trying as a process of yoga is just for a brief second or not even a second, maybe a second or two in our day, in our today's life, achieve a feeling of complete bliss, where we don't have thoughts running in our head, where we're not
mm,
distracted by our phones or our wives, mothers, children, grandparents, work, where it's just a moment of complete silence and complete bliss inside you. That is yoga.
mm.
So what I
Yeah.
teach in my class is actually, yes, I do teach asanas as well, but it's it's through the power of the breath what your body can achieve. The
Right.
breath is a wonderful medium to show you what the potential of your body is. It can create a sense of awareness. It can create a sense of somatic inquiry. It
Mm,
can be very individualistic and very experimental to who you are as a person as well. So, yes,
right.
breath is the starting point, but the layer of breath carries through the entire class, including the sequence of the asanas and finally culminating in yoga nidra or meditation or some more breath work as the case may be. It's all about awareness. Just to take this point a little further, we in today's world we still have to do certain daily activities, right? We still have
Mm,
to climb stairs, we still want to play golf, we still want to pick up heavy suitcases,
mm,
help our parents, help people out there. So you still need some amount of functional strength as well,
yeah.
right? You need your body to be flexible and strong. uh, and it's only once you have a strong flexible body
Mm,
does that feeling of strength and flexibility also permeate to the subconscious as well.
mm,
So it's a two-way street. We use the breath to strengthen and make the body more flexible,
yeah.
but in doing so, we're also honing the mind. And
Mm,
by honing the mind, we're actually opening up and letting go of all our various things that we spoke about. dropping all our attachments, and by doing so, we're making our consciousness more flexible, more open, so that it can actually see deeper within yourself. So it's a long, continuous cycle that it's a journey, like I said, of breathing, letting go, using your
Mm-hmm.
body as a vehicle, and just on that path. So that's the kind of yoga I learned.
Mm.
That's the kind of yoga I like to teach, and yeah.
Well, I'm so glad that you're doing it, and thank you so much for sharing the story and your story from where you started to where you are today. And man, it's fantastic because I really think more and more um, examples of people like you are um, is what is needed in the world with all this noise, with all this so much pain and suffering. When I say pain and suffering, especially mental health and of course physical health, and people just going around not knowing. So I think what you're doing is so required and really appreciated. And I'm sure you would have been continue to be a great lawyer. But thank you for doing this and appreciate you
No,
coming on the podcast.
no, thanks, Adib. I think I'll just end it with saying that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. There are many learned people in India, in Hindu mythology, in Hindu tradition, globally, culturally, people have appropriated yoga and taken it to wonderful places.
Mm,
I am standing on shoulders of all of them.
mm,
Uh, and there's a wealth of information out there. I'm just a mere enabler.
yeah.
And if I can make change to one person's life, I I think that's a great start.
No, man. I mean, not not to I mean, not to flatter you unnecessarily. But I think you're doing some amazing work. Um, it's superb. And are you open? Are you taking on more people in case someone wants to reach out if they want to know more about the classes you teach and
Oh yeah,
where can they
absolutely.
find you?
Absolutely. I don't have a social media presence
Okay,
actually at all.
okay.
Everything is generally by word of mouth.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. So
I have a
guys, yeah,
I have a philosophical reason for why no social media, but we'll keep that for a separate
I'd love to
conversation.
hear it, but yeah, maybe it's an entire episode.
Yeah, no, uh, I didn't want a distraction from the true purpose,
Yeah.
which is again like breathing, spending time, helping people finding themselves. And I think once I get on social media, then there's an element of vanity in social media. And
It's an element of
I,
marketing as well. Because you can do great work on as a yoga practitioner, but then you're drowned out in all that noise. Then you have to get a social media marketing team. Then you have to have the
yeah,
right posts. I know exactly where you're
yeah.
coming
So,
from, and it's
yeah,
amazing that you're doing this through word of mouth. It's
and I suggest word of mouth. I don't charge for my classes as well. I teach yoga for free. For the same reason, because I believe it's knowledge that is already available to
mm,
everyone. It's not mine. I have no proprietary right to charge for it. So I share whatever I can with whoever's interested to listen or hear. So yeah, that's why no social media, no charging. But I truly believe that that's my purpose.
man, it's incredible. But it's so good to hear that you enjoy where you are
Yeah.
today,
Oh, love
and
it.
you're happy doing what you're doing. So thank you. I think on behalf of everyone who's heard, listened to us and listened to your story, thank you. And yeah, if you guys want to find out more about Arjun, you have to come through me, and I charge.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah,
Go son.
let's go.
You can be my agent once I start charging.
Absolutely,
Done.
but it'll all come back to our golfing lessons where we have to pay Nikki for coaching.
Right.
I put it to
Oh,
good use.
right.
Don't worry. It'll all come back where we
Yeah.
can chill
Yeah.
more and hang out more and do this. So,
Yeah.
cheers, my friend. Appreciate it, and thank you so much for joining me on the show.
No, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me again. Truly, truly humbled. Thank you so much.
Cheers, brother.